Welcome to an interview in history. Imagine a podcast that serves as a bridge across time, connecting listeners to the voices of history's most impactful figures. Each episode is a deep dive into the lives and legacies of these individuals, exploring not just their well-documented achievements, but also uncovering lesser-known facts that shaped their contributions to our world. From scientists who unlocked the mysteries of the universe to activists who fought for social change, each story is a testament to the indelible mark they left on society. This journey through history will not only educate, but also inspire listeners to appreciate the intricate tapestry of human progress. I'm your host, Steve Gearing, and this week we're talking with Henry Marie Raymond de Toulouse-Lautrec Monfa, known as Toulouse-Lautrec. He's a French painter, printmaker, draftsman, caricaturist, and illustrator whose immersion in the colorful and theatrical life of Paris in the late 19th century allowed him to produce a collection of enticing, elegant, and provocative images of the sometimes decadent affairs of those times. Good afternoon, Monsieur Toulouse-Lautrec. Thank you for joining us today. Now let's begin with your early family life. Could you tell us about your parents and siblings?
My pleasure. I was born in 1864 in Albi, France, to a family of French aristocrats. My parents, Count Alphonse and Countess Adèle, were first cousins, a common practice in noble circles, though perhaps not the wisest for genetics. I was their eldest son, and they hoped for so much from me. Sadly, my younger brother, born after me, did not survive infancy. This left me their sole heir, though my health was fragile. After my brother's death, my parents separated, and a nanny cared for me. At the age of 8, I lived with my mother in Paris, where I drew sketches and caricatures in my exercise workbooks. A friend of my father, René Princeau, sometimes visited to give informal lessons. Some of my early paintings are those of horses, a specialty of Princeau's, and a subject I later revisited in my circus paintings. In 1875, I returned to Albi because my mother had concerns about my health. I took thermal baths, and my mother consulted doctors in the hopes of finding a way to improve my growth and development. Speaking of your health, your early life was marked by challenges. Can you share more about that? Indeed. I was a sickly child. At 13, I broke my left femur, and a year later, the right one. They never healed properly, due to a genetic disorder, compounded by the inbreeding in my family. My legs ceased to grow, though my torso remained proportional. I stood barely over 4.5 feet tall, a figure of some curiosity, I imagine.
That must have been incredibly difficult. How did you cope during your schooling?
My education was somewhat unconventional. My mother took a great care in overseeing my upbringing, especially after my parents separated. Tutors instructed me at home, given my physical limitations. I loved to draw from an early age, and my notebooks were often filled with sketches rather than arithmetic. By my late teens, my talent was undeniable, and my mother encouraged me to study art seriously. Princeau persuaded my parents to allow me to return to Paris and study under the portrait painter Léon Monet. I returned to Paris in 1882. My mother had high ambitions, and with the aim of me becoming a fashionable and respected painter. My mother used her family's influence to gain me entry to Bonnet's studio. I was drawn to Montmartre, the area of Paris known for its bohemian lifestyle and the haunt of artists, writers, and philosophers. Studying with Bonnet placed me in the heart of Montmartre, an area I rarely left over the next 20 years. After Bonnet took a new job, I moved to the studio of Ferdinand Comal and studied for a further 5 years and established the group of friends I kept for the rest of my life. At this time, I met Émile Bernard and Vincent van Gogh. Comal, whose instruction was more relaxed than Bonnet's, allowed his pupils to roam Paris, looking for subjects to paint. During this period, I had my first encounter with a prostitute, which led me to paint my first painting of a prostitute in Montmartre, a woman by the name of Marie Chalet. So what sparked your interest in art? My family has always appreciated culture, but for me it was an escape, a way to transcend the limits of my body. I was drawn to horses initially, and not to my aristocratic roots, and then to people. I was captivated by the vibrancy of life, its flaws, its passions. Later, when I moved to Paris, the bohemian world of Montmartre became my muse. Okay, let's talk about your career. You became known for your posters and depictions of Parisian nightlife. How did that come about? Montmartre, the heartbeat of the Belle Époque. I studied under Léon Bonnet and Fernand Carmon, but academic painting never suited me. Montmartre's cabarets, theaters, and dance halls were alive with energy. I felt at home among performers, prostitutes, and the working class, who accepted me without judgment. In addition to my growing alcoholism, I visited prostitutes and I was fascinated by their lifestyle as well as that of the urban underclass, and I incorporated those characters into my paintings. I did engage with sex with prostitutes, but the real reason for my behavior were moral ones. I was too proud to submit to my lot as a physical freak, an aristocrat cut off from my kind by my grotesque appearance. I found an affinity between my condition and the moral penury of the prostitute. The prostitutes inspired me. I frequently went to a brothel located in Rue d'Ambrosay, where I had my favorite called Muriel. I created about 100 drawings and 50 paintings inspired by the life of these women. I created a series of 2 women in bed together called Lilette. I also painted Solon de la Ruse de Molans from memory in my studio. I once said that a model is like a stuffed doll, but these women are alive. I wouldn't venture to pay them the 100 sous to sit for me, and God knows whether they would be worth it. They stretched out on the sofas like animals, make no demand, and they are not in the least bit conceited. I was well appreciated by the women. I found girls of my own size. Nowhere else do I feel so much at home. Tell me about the Moulin Rouge. When the Moulin Rouge Cabaret opened in 1889, I was commissioned to produce a series of posters. My mother had left Paris, and though I had a regular income from my family, making posters offered me a living of my own. Other artists looked down on the work, but I ignored them. My posters for the Moulin Rouge and other venues were revolutionary in their bold colors and dynamic compositions. They bridged the gap between fine art and the advertising. The cabaret reserved a seat for me and displayed my paintings. Among the works that I painted for the Moulin Rouge and other Parisian nightclubs are depictions of the singer Yvette Gilbert, the dancer Louise Robert, better known as Le Gaulet, who created the French can-can, and the much subtler dancer Jane Alvel. Your personal relationships must have influenced your art as well. Were there any significant connections? I had many companions, though none I could call a lasting love. I did, however, meet Suzanne Valdon. I made several portraits of her and supported her ambition as an artist. We were lovers, and she wanted to marry me. Our relationship ended, and she attempted suicide in 1888. My deformities and health made traditional relationships difficult. I was, however, deeply attached to the people I painted. I sought to capture their humanity, their struggles and joys. My art, in a way, was my deepest relationship. Did you ever have children of your own? It is a bittersweet thought. I suppose I would have liked to leave a legacy beyond my art, but my health and lifestyle made that unlikely. My works are my children, in a sense, and they will outlive me. How did your later life unfold? By February of 1899, my alcoholism has begun to take its toll, and I did collapse from exhaustion. My family had me committed to a sanatorium for 3 months. While committed, I drew 39 circus portraits. After my release, I returned to the Paris studio and traveled throughout France. Both my physical and mental health began to decline due to my alcoholism and syphilis. My health has worsened over the years. I was fond of absinthe and cognac, perhaps too fond. My indulgences, combined with the strain of my condition, has taken their toll. Now in my mid-30s, I am gravely ill. Your life has certainly been filled with brilliance. What do you hope people remember the most about you? That I saw beauty where others might not. Amid the grime and chaos of life, I sought to capture truth, not polish it. If my art inspires people to embrace humanity in all its imperfections, then I have succeeded. Thank you, Monsieur Toulouse-Lautrec. Your story is as vibrant and moving as your art. Thank you. It's been a pleasure to speak with you. On September 9, 1901, at the age of 36, Toulouse-Lautrec died from complications due to alcoholism and syphilis at his mother's estate. Toulouse-Lautrec's last words reportedly were, Le Vauchan, or the old fool, his goodbye to his father. After Toulouse-Lautrec's death, his mother, Comtesse Adèle de Toulouse-Lautrec-Montfort, and his art dealer, Maurice Joyand, continued promoting his artwork. His mother contributed funds for a museum to be created in Albi, his birthplace, to show his works. This Musée Toulouse-Lautrec owns the most extensive collections of his work. And now another forgotten history. Nancy Green was an American former slave who, as Aunt Jemima, was one of the first African-American models hired to promote a corporate trademark. The Aunt Jemima recipe was not her recipe, but she became the advertising world's first living trademark. The syrup brand was a tribute to this woman's gifts and talents. The world knew her as Aunt Jemima, but her real name was Nancy Green. And she was a true American success story. She was born a slave in 1834 in Montgomery County, Kentucky, and became a wealthy superstar in the advertising world as the first living trademark. Green was 56 years old when she was selected as a spokesperson for a new ready-to-mix and yeast pancake flour and made its debut in 1893 at a Chicago Fair and Exposition. She demonstrated the pancake mix and served thousands of pancakes and became an instant star. She was a good storyteller. Her personality was warm and engaging, and her sense of show was exceptional. Her display booth drew so many people that she was assigned special security personnel to keep the crowd moving. Nancy Green signed a lifetime contract, traveled on promotional tours all over the country, and received an extremely good salary. Her financial freedom and position as a national spokesperson allowed her to become a prominent advocate for the fight against poverty and equal rights for all Americans. She kept her job until her death in 1923 at the age of 89. She was an extraordinary woman. Join us next week when we talk to Charles Augustus Lindbergh, who was an American aviator, author, and military officer. On May 20th through the 21st, 1927, he made the first non-stop flight from New York City to Paris, a distance of 3,600 miles, flying alone for 33.5 hours in the first solo transatlantic flight. Until then, take care.